So good morning, everybody. I'm Philippa Haynes.
And I'm Mark Lee. Welcome to the Accountant Success Secrets podcast.
This is where we showcase and celebrate successful accountants who are doing great things, have years of experience, and whose stories can inspire and encourage other accountants around the UK.
That's right. We talk to accountants who've been running their own practice successfully for a good few years, and we ask them to share their story, including the highs, the lows, and what they've learned on the way. Our aim is to provide some fundamental insights for you, our loyal listener. And if you'd like to share your story in a similar way, please get in touch with either Philippa or myself.
So today we're delighted to introduce Glenn Martin of Avery Martin Accountants.
Yeah, Glenn initially trained with a local accounting firm before moving into a number of CFO roles, and then in 2016 returning to practice and supporting small businesses by launching Avery Martin Accountants.
Yeah, so welcome, Glenn, to the podcast. And is there anything else that we should add by way of introduction? What have we missed?
Good morning, everybody. So I'm Glenn Martin from Avery Martin Accountants. We're a small firm based in originally County Durham, but following the sort of lockdowns, etc., as a family, we had this what the hell moment of moving to the country. So we've recently relocated to rural Northumberland. So I split my time between the Durham and Northumberland office now, when we are actively recruiting work within Northumberland, but still gaining work in the Durham area. So we set up in 2016. Relatively small firm. We believe in working with smaller numbers of clients, but just doing more work with them. In 2018, we were voted the best sole trader accountant by Xero. It was a big thing for us. We got a lot of promotion from that. And we were ready to take on the world coming into sort of 2019, 2020, when the world went a bit pear-shaped. So we've had a bit of a battle the last couple of years, but now we're back on track and looking to go again.
That's brilliant. Thank you for sharing that, Glenn. Honesty as ever. As you know, we always aim to dig deep into the person behind the accountant. And we seem to manage this with just a few focused questions and still keep the podcast to around 30 minutes. And I go first with the sort of three questions in one, really. Why did you originally go into accounting? And then after being a CFO for some years, why did you return to your roots and start your own practice? And how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, so my route into accountancy was by accident in a way. Originally, so obviously, when I left school, you sort of left school at 16, and it was only the very brightest or the very richest people who went to university, which I was neither.
Me too.
I'd left school with, believe it or not, the intention of joining the fire brigade. But when I went for my test, they said I wasn't strong enough or something like that to do the physicals in those days. So I couldn't reapply for another 12 months. So there was a local firm was taking on an apprentice accountant. Obviously, I was always decent at maths, etc. at school. So I thought, well, I'll give that a go for the 12 months and then reapply at the fire brigade. In those days, it was when they had those terrible green phosphorus monitors in accountancy. So because I was the apprentice, I had to sit and type in everybody's trial balances because they only had one computer in the entire firm. Oh. When I came to reapply for the fire brigade, my eyes had deteriorated to a level where I couldn't qualify, so I needed glasses. Goodness. So I thought, I'm going to have to give this accountancy lark a go. So they obviously put me through AAT, then CMA. So I think I qualified when I was about 25. Ended up as an accountancy manager at 25, and then a director at 30. I went into the CFO stuff. Really was just, it was, believe it or not, was the lecturer from college when I was doing my CMA. He had an accounting practice, but he also wanted to set up a restaurant. So he said, would I come and run his practice and also be the FD of his bar and restaurant setup? So I thought it was a bit different to where I was at the time. So I went in with that. Did that for 3 years. Had a few other CFO roles after that. Got to a stage, the reason I left practice at that time is because I felt the technology wasn't there to do a good job for clients. there was basically Sage Desktop, and that was it, and everything else. You know, you used to do management accounts for people like 6 weeks after the month end and stuff like that, because it just took so long to do it, because you didn't have the data entry tools we have now. And I just felt we couldn't do the value added stuff for clients, just the technology didn't allow. So I had a good sort of 10, 12 years in CFO roles, was relatively successful. But if I was honest, me passion always was in the sort of family owned business of, you know, because I really like working with that type of people. And so that was what I always wanted to do. So I got to about 40, 42-year-old, and I just thought if it was in the period following the 2008 crash, where the job wasn't enjoying it anymore, and I just thought, well, I had a job for life, but if I didn't do something now, I just never would. So I made this decision to go and set up the business then, just with the support, with the idea of using my practice knowledge to make sure your compliance stuff's right, but with my commercial experience I'd gained, just to provide an extra dimension to really give big firm experience, if you like, to small businesses looking to grow. You know, so somebody who had a £500,000 business but wanted a £1 or £2 million business, I just thought I could bring a lot to that, just with my, let's say, with the experience I gained. So that was really my plan. So my initial plan was just to be this sort of fractional CFO where you had sort of 10 clients, and you did a day, a fortnight for them or whatever. After about 6 months, I just didn't have enough work at that level. And I also found that you couldn't just be the CFO, because typically the books and records were good enough standard to do your CFO bit.
Yeah.
So that's when I thought, well, I'm going to have to get a bookkeeper in here to fix the book. But then obviously she needed 25 hours, so I needed, well, I'm going to have to get some compliance work to justify your salary. And so that's when we sort of developed out this hybrid business, really, where we sort of have half, which is general businesses. We do payroll, bookkeeping, that for, and then the sort of top 10, 15% of clients is get the sort of fully outsourced bit where they get to deal with me. And that's sort of where we are today. So works reasonably well, sort of 50-50 compliance and sort of added value work.
Fantastic. I mean, one of the questions I was going to ask is, you know, what have you learned along the way? And I think, I mean, you came to my attention in 2019, 2020, when you were talking about lockdown and, you know, your clients, and also you were very open about, you know, the effect it had on you and your family at that time. I'm really keen to understand, what have you learned from that period? Because it almost feels like it's a real focus time where you learned a lot and where you've come out, as you said in our chat before, 2023, you're a lot stronger, you know where you're going. So tell the listeners what it is that you've learned and what you did.
Yeah, I mean, so I always try and tell myself that I'm a business owner first and then an accountant second. Excellent. And I just think that was really, really tested through that period, because when sort of lockdown, etc., first came about, obviously nobody knew how to handle it, because it's never, in anybody's lifetime, it's never had to be dealt with before. And because we were a small firm, we were quite agile at the initial part of it. So we came out of the blocks flying, really, where we had everybody, we sat, you know, we put all our clients unaffected, massively affected, and then somewhere in between. And we sort of put a plan in place for everybody, and just thought, right, that'll work for a certain period of time. But as a business owner, you know, the clients who are going to be unaffected is where I wanted to put my time in the future. And obviously some clients were not going to survive. Some people would, you know, likely become insolvent at some point. And some people would, you know, defer taxes, but then would struggle to pay them because the businesses weren't recovering fully. So it was become very difficult managing your time, because obviously you didn't want to neglect your good clients who were unaffected, but obviously there was this huge time drain for people who were requiring support. And I think it also created a bit of a merry-go-round of clients, where we had a lot of inquiries from people who had been sort of, were probably low down the list in bigger firms. So when they'd obviously just thought, right, we've got to look after the top guys, these people felt neglected. So a lot of the new inquiries we got were from people who were struggling So we maybe took some work on that was not ideal really, because it became quite a big sort of time drain on us, and a big sort of drawn our resources. So we did, we did make a few. It's difficult how you say if it was a bad call or not, because morally I think we did the right thing for people, where we didn't turn people away, or we didn't cut them off. From a business point of view, obviously we should have put more time in with the better clients who were going to survive and thrive, and we did lose a couple of clients out at the top end who got poached because they were offered all sorts of high level services elsewhere. So that's where it was. It's been a difficult couple of years really. So I think and it was obviously what followed lockdown was difficult, because it was like, we'll get into 2021, things will be better then, we'll bounce back, and people did okay for 3 or 4 months, and then wars happened and utility prices went crazy, cost of living, bank rates, etc. And it just became this thing where there was always an excuse for people not to do things or not to do anything new. And the sort of message we had for clients was, ultimately, it's one of acceptance. You've got to accept to have what you had before. You've got to do more than you did before.
Yeah.
You're going to, if you're going to have to either sell different products that you did before, or do something that you didn't do before to get the same return, because that's just where you are. So you can either accept that, but some people were sort of trapped in this thing where it will just come back somehow naturally without actually doing anything. So that was really where we are, and that progressed through to where people did the top end of our list, I guess, and the people I'm speaking with now have accepted, right, the world is not a great place currently, and yes, there's always going to be obstacles, but really you've just got to put your line in the sand and move forward. And so now the conversation we have now is, yes, it's not great, but we need to start taking some chances. We need to open up another site to make the same money we did with one site, or we need to take on some extra staff, we need to do more contracts than we did before. That type of conversation. And slowly people are sort of getting back in that mindset of, yes, we'll just put the noise out and just focus on what we're doing, what we can. And I think a big thing, one of the things I started doing through lockdown is I started reading a lot more, and just a lot more podcast type stuff listening to. And it was this thing around mindsets where I think there was a guy, he's on that SAS thing on Channel 4, he's called Ollie Ollerton. And he said the best piece of advice he was ever given was, when your back's to the wall and you're struggling with things, like, write down on a piece of paper everything that's worrying you, and then cross out the bits that you can't influence, and then just put your time in with the bits you can. And I just think that's a great little bit of advice for somebody, because we can't control the bank rates, we can't control wars and things like that, but you can control your team, and you can influence your team, you can influence your family, and I think it was just getting into that. So it's been a long, hard slog to get that, but I think we're in a position where the sort of clients we've got are successful businesses. They've got sufficient cash in the business to go forward, and now we're finally starting to look forward with a bit of positivity, which we haven't since 2019, sir.
That's brilliant, Glenn. A couple of thoughts prompted by what you said there. The first one is, I think it's true for a lot of accountants as well, who are just waiting for things to get back how they were, and not necessarily accepting they're going to have to do things differently going forwards to achieve the same level of income, profit, clients, or whatever, because the world has changed around them. And the other one is that great reference to the SAS guy's advice on writing down your worries. There's a quote I came across years ago that has been very helpful to me, and my wife reminds me it doesn't work for everybody, so I put that caveat in. But I keep in mind the phrase that worry is like a rocking horse. It gives you something to do, but it doesn't get you anywhere.
Yeah.
And breaking your worries down to those that you can do something about, and then taking action, and not spending time and giving headspace to all those things you can't do anything about. I think that's a really good tip. Thank you for sharing it.
Glenn, when you were talking about Mark, you talked about taking action, and we talked then about, looking at the different types of clients that you had over lockdown and saying, who can we help, who's in trouble, etc. I know that you've taken that forward and you're in a very healthy position now with clients who, generally speaking, are good clients, and you've managed to wean off those who are less good. I know that's something that a lot of accountants think about and struggle with. How did you get to that place of having those conversations, deciding which ones you wanted, all of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we do I think I look at it as like a snake shedding its skin almost. So every now and again, you just have to stop and then look at your own businesses. And if you're at the end of the day, if you're advising clients, you should be advising them on what you do yourself. So we stop and do a review, and we look through the clients. We look through who we enjoy working with, who are working well, who we make the most profit on, who are the better clients to deal with, who do the staff like to deal with. So I think we always, so it pays you to review your clients into the sort of those three categories, where the good, the sort of average, and the problematic ones. And then, you do have to have that difficult conversation to clean things up. So there could be, I'm not an advocate of pricing bad clients out of the firm. So I know a lot of people just, if they've got difficult clients, they just double the fees with the idea of them voting with the feet. But for me, if they accept that, you've then got somebody who's just paying you twice as much to be a bad client. So
yep.
They're still a bad client. So so I just think sometimes you've got to have, and certainly the last 18 months, we've had to have a lot of difficult conversations with people where, the business is plodding along. It was making half the money it was before. There isn't sufficient money for the owners to draw out. I'm concerned about them building up personal debt or credit cards and things like that. So they had to make a decision where, it wasn't working. So a lot of people in the last couple of years have returned to employment. A lot of people really through the change in, because we used to have like a lot of freelance type clients who were self-employed just because they wanted the flexibility of self-employment. But since lockdown, obviously, you can actually get jobs where they've now adopted hybrid working and things. So a lot of people just thought actually the self-employment thing was okay, but actually getting a pension and holidays and when I can work 2 or 3 days a week from home is actually not that bad. So a lot of people have sort of just went back into the employment game. So I do think this, and I think that the danger of social media is a lot of people just promote that they only ever win, they never make mistakes. But I think for me, you've got to, you've got to grow a bit, and then within that there'll be some things that aren't right, so you have to then cut them out and then focus and regrow. So it's like the stage of the business that you go through, and I think you need to have that sort of step back and look at what you're doing yourself, really, every sort of 12 months, 18 months.
I love that, and I love your whole style and approach that you've been talking about there. And I remember when I looked at your website, and you set out pricing packages on there, and you had one that most people don't have. I think you call it the grafters package, essentially for people who've just left employment, want to increase their earnings, but have more flexibility in family time. But they're probably the sort of people you're talking about there who, after a while of trying that, they never had a business as such.
Yeah.
So they don't go on to your solopreneur package or your lean business or your growing business package, but you've been able to help them for that period. And then they go back into employment at some later stage.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the main reasons, for me, people will leave employment is because if I go back to when I was employed, I had a good job, I had a reasonably well paid job. The downside was that I used to have to work 60 hours a week sometimes, and obviously those extra 20 hours you're unpaid for.
Yeah.
And obviously a lot of what you're doing was picking up other people's mistakes, and so it was quite stressful because you weren't the owner of the business, so you couldn't stop a lot of the stress because the people who were making the mistakes were often the owners of the business who were senior to you. So I think most people leave employment to have more flexibility and time to themselves, so get down to a 40-hour week, have that sort of stress or a managed amount of stress in their life, and then obviously they would want to earn it at least the same as they do in employment. So that's time, mind, and financial freedom. And I think most people actually can achieve that quite well, but you've just got to not slip into the mindset of where if you're just doing loads of hours, it'll produce money somewhere. And I think you've got to balance out all three. So yes, you want enough money to have a good life, but you also want to have you only work enough hours that you've got your weekends free, so you can see your kids play football or whatever. And you've got to, like I say, have this sort of managed amount of stress where when you're off on the weekend, you're not looking at your mobile phone every 2 seconds and something's going to go wrong. And I just think, because I've done that myself, I just think it's like an avenue we bring to people which isn't sort of financial or compliance related, but it's about giving people the life that they want. And we can assist that through their finances and help them how they set the business up, if you like.
I mean, my next question is what do you think makes you and your firm unique? And I think, certainly some of the stuff that you've been talking about and the way you talk about it and the way you approach it is unique in itself. But how would you respond to that question?
I think that what we bring to a business is you wouldn't normally find in a set of our size. So I think I've got great commercial awareness. So at the minute I've got a client who's selling the business. I've obviously done that a lot of times before, where for like multi-million-pound deals. So I can bring a lot to that. Whereas, if you're just like a compliance accountant, you probably haven't done that many of those type of things, and you don't understand. You'll understand the tax implications, but you don't understand how the deals play out. You don't understand how the other side will react and the signs the other side gives, and if they're going to try and reduce the price, things like that. So I think I've got a good commercial awareness that you wouldn't normally find in a firm the size we are. And I think the other thing we bring is I have a great black book of contacts, in that because I've worked actively with entrepreneurs and, like I said, we've done a lot of deals over the years. I've just got a great supporting cast, if you like, around me of good lawyers. I know good insurance guys, financial advisors, pension people. And so initially people will come to me and say, right, Glenn, in 12 months' time, we're looking to move house to get into an area that's got the best schools or whatever. So I'm going to be able to need a mortgage. Can you help us out? So I've got a great mortgage guy who none of my clients ever have issues getting mortgages because they always use my guy. So I just think that the sort of team around us, it's actually adds up to something greater than just the individual people. Because I've got, like I said, my black book is really strong locally. And I think it just adds a lot of value to what we do, because yes, we just do your accounts, but we've also got, we can help you with your legal stuff, your insurances, because we've got everybody who have sort of proven people around us. And like I said, the other thing I think that we get is I think to be a successful accountant now, the technical bits are given, and I think obviously AI and stuff will reduce the need to be a good technical accountant anyway. Absolutely. But I just think like the compassion and things that are good soft skills, which aren't really taught you in exams, and understanding people, like talking to people, and help them get what they want. Do you know what I mean? So my clients don't come to me because they want to save tax necessarily. They come to me because they want to know if they can buy the house in the catchment area for the right school, or they come to me because they want to know, can the business provide it in our 5 holidays this year? And that's really where we focus. So it's the clients we work with, they don't want to be millionaires and drive Porsches. They just want to have enough money to have a good life, but then have the good life. So have the holidays, have the time off, see the kids in pantomimes and things. So it's understood. So we'll put time in with systems like, say if people, sometimes will say, a client will say, I'm stressed, I've been working 6 days a week. And if you just stop and have that conversation with them and say, well, why do you work 6 days a week? Where is this extra in it? Like when you sit down and talk to them and you're that extra voice in the conversation, often the reason he's doing the 6 days is silly, or because he feels he has to, or he always wants to be the last person at the office, and you'll just say, well, why don't you just finish on Friday this weekend and don't do any work and just see if the world falls apart?
Yeah,
he probably knows that's right, but it's hard to advise yourself. So we just have great conversations like that, really just helping people and just like digging into the business really behind the numbers and to give them that little bit more without them having to put loads of effort in.
It's so true. Brilliantly summarised there. Coincidentally, it probably won't surprise you. That's one of the things that I do with a lot of the accountants that I'm mentoring as well, because they're working more hours than they want to. But I won't go into the details, but I'm just thinking of a specific client I just had a conversation with very recently. Philippa and I are sort of smiling in the background, because not only are you answering the questions we're asking, you're also answering the sort of the next questions that we were going to answer as well. So I was going to ask, what are the other secrets to your success? And I don't know if there are any more. You've summarised some. And by the way, I think you're absolutely right. The skills required to be a good accountant 10, 20 years ago probably attracted different people into accountancy than will need to move into accountancy over the next 5 or 10 years, because as AI and technology will be doing much more of the detail work, and accountants will need to have better interpersonal skills. You referenced soft skills. I talk about them as being amongst the key business skills that we need to develop, because to an extent anyone can do the technical stuff with some training and some experience, but relating to people, attracting their confidence, their trust, being able to deliver peace of mind is not something a computer can do, nor is it something that lots of accountants who trained a long time ago find easy to do either. So there's a transition there.
Can I jump in there? One of the things that I really loved about listening to you and talking about Unique and all of the learnings is, I think a lot of accountants and bookkeepers talk about freeing up time and about life balance and all of that good stuff. But I think in many ways you go that one step further, because of your commercial background and because you've seen it, done it, and worked within that larger organisation. I think you have more of an understanding of how you can have that conversation and move people on. It's all very well to say we'll free you up, but then somebody then has to have the conversation about how that's going to happen and what needs to be done. And that to me seems like a massive piece that you fill in there.
Yeah, it's very impressive. So I'll come back and having the two of us having contributed. Any other secrets to your success that you can share, Glenn?
I just think, just in general, just don't go for perfect. I think the reason people procrastinate is because they want this sort of perfect business plan and only ever work with the certain people. And I just think go forward with version 1, and then like I said, just review after a year, review what you're doing. And when people will say, or when I set out, I guess I had the initial thought of who my best client would be, and the reality was that wasn't it. And you sort of find a line of best fit through your client pool, and then you look at the people who you enjoy working with, and they'll have common traits through, and that produces your best client. So, like I said, don't be sort of overly worried about getting everything right first time, right? Really, if you get an 8 out of 10 straight away, that's good, and then just keep working on it.
And that's really, really important, because I think it's the traits that you see in clients that you currently have that enable you to define what you really want. Sorry, Mark, I cut you off there. Go ahead.
No. I was going to say, there's a phrase: perfection is the enemy of action. People hold off taking action because they want it to be perfect, and I totally agree with you, Glenn. I've been guilty of it myself, and sometimes we just have to remind ourselves better to take action and get it nearly right, because at least we're moving forwards.
Well, that's beautifully ended. Go on.
I'm just going to say, at what stage did you decide to bring a team on board to build up Avery Martin to be beyond you?
Timing wise, it was after about 6 months, and I found obviously I only wanted to do sort of high value work, and I just found the problem was that you need to do bookkeeping, you need to do VAT returns, and that you get more of hours of bookkeeping in payroll than you do the high value work. So you've got to get to a position where once you've got 20 hours a week of bookkeeping, that you hire somebody to do 20 hours bookkeeping for you. And then we sort of moved forward like that. If I'm honest, it was a big thing hiring the first member of staff, because I just thought it was always going to be a struggle in that. I just thought, well, nobody's going to leave like a 4 or 5 partner firm to come and work with me and sit beside my desk in a little room somewhere. And I thought it was going to be a big problem. And obviously, if you've only got sort of 20 hours a week, it's a big step to make a 40-hour hire if you've got nothing to do for them half of the week. But it was just at a networking event. I met a girl who was a recruiter, and she'd worked for one of the big recruitment companies. She'd went on maternity leave, and when she went back she was like management level in a sort of big recruiter, and she went back after maternity leave, and her boss said, oh, well, you can only come back if you're going to do 5 days a week. So this is obviously in the days before the people that sort of have the views they do now around flexible working. So she just said, oh, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to set up on my own. So she set up on her own as a recruiter from that experience. So she started, obviously, in the Northeast at that time. There was a lot of the big firms obviously spend fortunes training women to become good accountants, and then once they go on maternity leave, don't have them back unless they're going to do 40 hours. So it created like a little niche for this girl of people who wanted 2 and 3 days a week. And there were great people that wanted home working, and they wanted to do 25 hours a week, but they were often, qualified accountants really. And the flexibility was what they're after, so they didn't have huge salary demands. So she introduced me to this little network of people. So I've now got all the staff are just, working mums who do 25 hours a week, and it just works great. I've not had really any issues with any of the stuff. But really, it was something that I just thought I was always going to struggle with. That's really fixed it in one go.
Now, I'm pleased I asked, and thank you for that answer, because I think that's really valuable for listeners to know. Good.
Well, listen, we could, as always, talk for ages, but we've really, I guess, come to the end. And with that, I obviously want to make sure, Glenn, that people know how they can get in touch with you. What's the best way of having a chat with you?
I mean, just reach out through any of the social channels, or just give me a call. Even I'm around most of the time. I'm always happy to have a call with people.
Yeah, I've noticed that on Accounting Web, I think, as well as everywhere else. So that's wonderful as well. And Philippa, how can listeners find out more about you and Insight 101?
Yeah, well, LinkedIn, obviously, I'm there a lot of the time. Otherwise, my website, insight101.co.uk. And for those bookkeepers who are looking to learn more about the do's and don'ts of marketing, I've got a Mythbusters session on the 21st of March for the ICB. So book your slot now.
Excellent.
Mark, and tell us a little bit more about how we can get in touch with you.
Yeah, online everywhere. I'm Bookmark Lee. My name is so common, so my business card is a bookmark as well. I'm Bookmark Lee, or Mark Lee FCA on LinkedIn, and my website, bookmarklee.co.uk. Full details of the Soul Practice Club, mentoring and speaking there. And a new website launching within the next week, I think.
Great stuff. Well, that's it. So if you've enjoyed the Accountant Success Secrets podcast, please share the love online, leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and let us have your direct feedback too.
Absolutely. And do reach out, as I said, to either Philippa or myself if you'd like to be interviewed on a future podcast. Many thanks again to Glenn and to Philippa. And until next time on the Accountant Success Secrets podcast, or anywhere else where we might meet online or in real life. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you very much. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.